And of course, Australian real estate is making a comeback after a 2-year downturn. Near record numbers of Australian buyers are rushing back into the booming market, propelled by 3 rate cuts, according to the latest Commonwealth Bank research. I spoke earlier today with property expert Lachlan, the Advisory Director of Place Projects. I started by asking him for a national report on the market.
Undoubtedly, it's been a sort of tough 18 months across all states. Sydney and Melbourne have recovered much faster and they've seen a bit of a kick, but Brisbane is sort of the more stable cousin. So, I think Brisbane's positioning itself for a good growth run in the future, but it's going to take some time.
Lachlan, the RBA's fairly significant and record drop in interest rates. Yep. How have they impacted the market?
I think the first couple of interest rates we saw some immediate responses. The most recent interest rate we probably haven't seen as bigger responses as we would like. But in saying that, it's given people some confidence that they know where their lending abilities are. They understand how much they can borrow, and they sort of know where they're going to go and what they're going to invest in next.
All right, let's have a look at the different states. Obviously, Victoria seems to be travelling along fairly well. Is there any hot spots down there that we need to look at?
Melbourne's always that. It's done really well. It's recovered quickly. Obviously, when we had the federal election occurring, we had those changes in stamp duties, all those sorts of issues, put some handbrakes on the southern states. But that has rebounded really quickly.
Sydney?
Again, they've, their approvals are ticking up again, and, this development and confidence has naturally improved really fast.
And what about Queensland? Because we hear a lot about Queensland, and, a lot of people still see Queensland as being very good value.
That's exactly right. I think Queensland, the affordability of Queensland is the key. The platform has probably been positioned for Brisbane to see some growth in the next 12 months. We are much steadier up here in terms of our responses to change. So we didn't see the decline that we saw across the southern states, but it's just a natural sort of progression. I think over the next couple of years we'll see that bounce.
And WA had a big spike back in the sort of early 2000s, but it's certainly steadied off. How's it tracking now?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's still a bit of doubt out there. It's really driven around the mining, and there's no real signs of what's to come there.
And what about South Australia?
South Australia's probably the forgotten cousin. It's down there. It's got a lot of infrastructure being developed, and I think it's not as big a marketplace, so it's probably more subject to higher changes in volatility.
And of course, Tasmania, which seems to be doing quite well.
Tassie's done really well, particularly that key central areas like Hobart and areas that have a big population growth. They're getting people to come down and buy property. So.
And of course, we finish off with the top end, the NT. There's plenty of bargains up there at the moment.
NT, again, it's not a very big, high volume space. There's a lot of agriculture and things just drive that market.
Lachlan, where's the sweet spot for people who are looking for bargains at the moment? Is it in that sort of 800 to 1.2? Is it 1.5 to 2.5? Or is it in that sort of early, sort of under 500 mark?
I think there's probably a couple of opportunities. The top end is definitely leading the marketplace at the moment. It's going leaps and bounds. Some really good confidence in the upper end and that $1 million plus, $2 million plus space. Those properties are very rare and very special. I honestly think the investment market's probably something that people should be looking at in the future. Units, in particular, supply has come back a lot. With the finance arrangements, it's pretty hard to borrow money, and that's constraining what people can do and what developers can land in the marketplace. Inevitably, that's creating opportunity for buyers. So the rental yields, we're seeing rental yields already start to come up. We're seeing that interest in people starting to inquire. So I think that's the market to watch.
Lachlan, I've always wanted to ask this question of someone whose expertise is real estate and property. Are you a sort of a listed guy, or are you an auction guy? And I guess that will often depend upon the property and the circumstances. But I love that competitive tension around an auction. And surely, is an auction the better option in your opinion?
Look, it definitely depends on the property, and at all times we're guided by your real estate professional. You know, those guys know their marketplace. If the property's special enough, auction's the way to go. But absolutely,
the emotion of an auction.
The emotion is amazing, and you know, as I said, I love bidding on other people's behalves. It's fantastic. You get
Spending other people's money.
Yeah, it's a thrill, you know, and it is great, and you do get that competitive tension, and you generally see, in most cases, a good auction campaign will see results above what you would normally get on a.
How emotion charged is buying property? Because when you do see an auction and you see a couple of bidders going at it, both of whom are very keen on the property, there is a lot of emotion attached to that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, whenever you're buying a piece of real estate, there's emotion attached. You know, people get really involved in what they're looking at. And you always try and separate that if you're looking at investment property. It's the same thing. You know, you always look at yourself, you see yourself living in it, who's going to be living there, what they're going to be doing, what the lifestyle's like. You know, all these factors contribute to people's decisions and what they do with real estate.
All right, and what's the biggest challenge for the property industry right now, in your opinion?
There's still the money issues. You know, the ramifications of the Royal Commission is still flowing through.
Interesting.
You know, there's still that bit of uncertainty out there as to what is going to happen. Realistically, overall, we're in a really good space. Like, as I said, the platform there has been built for some great stability and some great growth in the future.